Welcome all to the Tibetan Buddhist Society in the peaceful land of joy in such a beautiful day. And before we start, I'd like to thank our founder, our spiritual teacher, Geshe Acharya Thubten Loden, for establishing this centre, and for all the people that support this centre, working in the garden, working in cleaning the temple, making decisions, setting up the technology. It's all dependent upon people helping. And also thank you for coming to class as well. So today's session we'll be talking about loving kindness and compassion and how that can actually transform your life in various stages, and how it can help you deal with situations that are immediate, they're acute, and you're on your own in dealing them. So that segues into the topic of bodhicitta, which is a Sanskrit word meaning a mind of enlightenment. And it's not well known in the Western world as much as it is in the Eastern world. So we start with that today, and on the 30th of May we'll be dealing with anger, both anger that appears before you and anger that you feel within. The third week we'll be looking at joyous effort and its opposite of patience, and delving into a number of things about how our minds are configured. We may also include the science of the mind in terms of all the research that's going on, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama supports the meeting of the minds of science, and has gone into partnership with the Emory Tibet institution, which now allows Tibetan monks to participate in the training of the science of the mind, and scientists then to have Tibetan monks actually as subjects in their research. On the 30th of June there is a retreat, so the final class will be on the 10th of June, which will look at the types of meditation, our concentration, the calm abiding, insight and wisdom, and things like the two truths. So before we start, we're going to have a meditation on equanimity. The reason that the Buddhists espouse equanimity so much is because the main principal belief, as opposed to theism, is that Buddhists believe in rebirth. And because we don't necessarily become aware of the true nature of our reality, we create karma. And this karma then propels us into cyclical existence, and we continuously have rebirths after rebirths after rebirths. Once you understand the true nature of reality and the effects of karma, which is our actions, we start to slow down the cyclical existence and start to get a little bit of gap in what's happening, and we can start to breathe. So in logic and reason, because we've had so many rebirths, that the Buddhists look at that we've had limitless and countless mothers in our previous lives. To Westernize that, we've had countless parents, we've had countless people that loved us in previous lives. So we use the term mother sentient beings, and Tibetan Buddhists use that as a way of deepening their understanding of equanimity. So to stop and mitigate all these things like in-groups and out-groups, to see everyone together. And once they deepen that awareness, they have a more sense of us. That's the reason why they use mother sentient beings as a method of teaching. So the Buddha, when he attained enlightenment, he had a direct perception of all his previous lives. And that is in the Pali Canon, and it is a critical foundation of the Buddhist teachings. And some of those past lives were actually written in the Jakarta tales. So we start now by having a meditation, a taste of this meditation in equanimity. And it's very important to be comfortable. And if there is a sound that may be heard somewhere outside, or a bang or like that, just gently bring the mind back to you. And this is a meditation that we use in the hospital. There's not one room that doesn't have a PA system. And so when we're on particular wards, or nursing staff, or even some of the doctors come in, some of those staff are on what's called the Met calls, or they're in code blues and so forth. So it's common that we're right in the middle of a meditation when out there is a attention all staff, Met call, the ward and the area. So even leading meditations, you go to that sound, but then you bring it back in. So that's become a useful tool in meditation, because if it happens regularly, then you become more and more aware of how when you're relaxing, the mind can drift somewhere else. And the moment you're aware that the mind drifts somewhere else, just gently bring it back to you. There's one thing that research says, that compassionate meditators show less anger and focus more on problem solving. So we'll discuss that later. So now what you do is gather, just place yourself in a very comfortable position where your back is straight. And having a back straight allows the energy to flow naturally, effortlessly, and calmly. So we first take an in-breath, imagining that we're breathing in the cool air of the Himalayas. And we breathe out any concerns or worries. Anything that captures your attention right now other than the breathing. So just let the natural rhythm of the breath flow. And gather the mind at that point or area where you feel the breath the most. Maybe in the back of the throat, nostrils, chest, the tummy, shoulders, wherever you feel it. So center the mind there and just notice each breath, the depth of the breath, the duration from breath to breath, and as you relax. Start to feel calm. So you might first scan your body. So you gather the mind to your feet and you feel them relax. Just resting. And then we gather the mind to the legs and knees, releasing any tightness. Up to the back, shoulders. Allow your back and shoulders to be loose, comfortable, relaxed. And then we go down to the arms and hands, left hand, right hand, loosely resting. And you may feel that your hands are beginning to feel soft. We then bring the mind to our chest, tummy, up to our neck and our jaw. Releasing any tension in the jaw. Facial muscles relaxed. Back of the head, top of the head, down to the forehead. And then finally to the eyes. The eyes that see everything are now allowed to relax, to rest. So release all tightness, knots in the eyes, as your whole body now feels calm. And the rhythm of the breath may have changed to a gentle, natural rhythm. Natural rhythm, relaxed. With a mind that is aware, a mind that is full of knowledge and awareness. So now we start the meditation on equanimity. So using your imagination, you imagine in front of you your friends, your enemies and strangers. Directly in front of you, visualize strangers. That is, all those beings to whom you feel neutral. And slightly to the left, visualize all those whom you would class as friends. That is, relatives, friends, or anyone whom you care for. And to the right, visualize enemies. That is, anyone toward whom you have harsh or hurtful feelings or find it difficult to communicate with. So now, focusing on friends, just imagine with your friends and open your heart to the love. Notice how your heart reacts when you're with your friends, loved ones, family. And extend that love to them and receive it in return. And now you turn towards those that you may have aversion towards, or perhaps a little angry or mad with. And think, during limitless lifetimes, my relationship with other living beings has constantly changed. It is true that the people grouped as enemies, with whom I feel angry and cannot communicate, may be harming and hindering me at present. But in many previous lives, they have loved and helped me, and I have loved and helped them. Furthermore, in past lives, they have all been my mothers, parents, and nurtured me with great kindness. Therefore, there is no reason to harbour anger towards them. Then you bring your mind towards the group of people that you have in different strangers. And think, I feel indifferent towards these strangers who at present neither help nor hinder me. But in previous lives they have been my friend and loved ones, and they have also been my enemies and have harmed me. There is no reason, therefore, to be indifferent towards these people. So with loved ones and family and friends, and you may wish to just have an open awareness about this. And think, I am fond of these beings and am attached to them now, but though I have good relations with them now, in many previous lives they have harmed me, and also I have caused them trouble and suffering. There is no good reason, therefore, to be particularly strongly attached to them now. So now, visualize the three groups again. Breathing in and out gently. And just consider the possibility how friends become enemies, enemies become strangers. Those we love may become enemies. Those we've dearly loved may leave and in time become strangers. So whilst in this life we enjoy loving relationships, we have a conscious awareness of the changing nature of our relationships over many lives. So looking, visualizing the three groups again, you say, may all living beings have happiness and all causes of happiness. May all living beings be free from suffering and all causes of suffering. May all living beings abide in equanimity, free from desire and hatred. And may all living beings include I and me. And through my peace and my introspection of mind and my learnings of myself and others, may I make every person I meet calm, happy, relaxed. May I be a benefit to all sentient beings. So gradually you bring your mind back to the breath and you're aware of this room, the sounds outside. Take a gentle breath in and then a gentle breath out. So when you're ready, you may gently open your eyes. So in the next section of this teachings, we're going to look at compassion. And in the Buddhist teachings, there is what we call compassion, and then there's great compassion, which is part of the path of the the bodhicitta. So compassion is based on wishing for that person's suffering or a group of people suffering to end, trying to remove that suffering for them. So it's currently everyone that we perceive. So in this room, we may perceive each other. In a hospital situation, we may perceive a patient. In watching the news or reading about the news on social media, we perceive those people which are on the screen at the time. And compassion can mean a lot to many people, but in a hospital environment, there was research on cancer patients, and they were asked a number of things with a definition of various ways that people treat them. So they asked the question, which is the most important to you right now? Empathy, sympathy, or compassion? Now, of course, compassion is the wish for a number of beings to be free of suffering. And the majority said compassion, because please provide me with pain relief. Please provide me with medication so the cancer can be arrested. So they would seek that more wholly when people are in suffering. There was a CNN crew that went to Syria at the times, and there was all the bombings there. And this was a courageous crew that went to a hospital, maternity hospital, and there was a doctor there. She herself was 7 months pregnant, and she showed the pediatric intensive care unit, and there were 3 premature babies there. And the doctor was saying that because of the war and the bombings that were occurring there, the mothers that were pregnant were actually having premature births. And she said, why isn't the international community helping us? Look at this. And there's that desperation that made you understand that the suffering and the wanting to end that suffering and the lack of compassion that they were receiving at the time was very, very clear by her voice. Similarly, the crew went to a house where it was bombed by the Russians and the Syrian army, and there was a father desperately looking for his son. And that the cries that you could hear were just heartbreaking. And people were helping him, trying to find his son, and they found him, but unfortunately he was dead. And he carried him out. And that image is places where we would never go because they're out of our mind, they're out of our perception. So it's the social media that's bringing in the suffering into our mind space and the space around us. And the father was then later interviewed, and he asked, are you mad at the Russians? Are you mad at the Syrians for bombing and killing your family? And his face was just like it had absolutely no more spirit left in him. He had absolute trauma. And he said, no, I'm mad at the international, the people from around the world. Where is your compassion? So people are crying to end their suffering from around the world. Great compassion, therefore, the object of great compassion is to relieve the suffering of all sentient beings without exception. So if we have compassion on one hand, which is fundamental basis of all the people that we perceive, how do we then develop the compassion that wishes the suffering of all sentient beings to be relieved, and all sentient beings without exception? Well, it's a work in progress. It's called the Mahayana path. And welcome to bodhicitta, because bodhicitta is wishing to attain perfect enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And this is the Mahayana path. So in entering the Mahayana path and sort of getting this understanding, yeah, there is suffering out there, and I really want to do something. I can start in many ways, but it just makes sense to me. So all of a sudden your mind becomes far more spacious. You still are who you are. You still do your work. You still enjoy friends. You still enjoy movies. But there's this awareness now, this presence. There's this consciousness about you that it's aware of the suffering. So Bodhicitta then, definition as we mentioned, it's a mind wishing to, for the sake of all sentient beings, wanting to attain enlightenment. It's an equal attitude toward every living being. So to develop this wonderful, extraordinary mind, equanimity is required. And if we're honest with ourselves, we react differently to various people. Our teacher, Geshe Acharya Thubten Loden, used to pick up very quickly if any student perhaps rejoiced in a particular head of country that may have been captured and then put in prison, because it's that very essence of mind that sees things clearly without judgment. So the fact that we may rejoice in a terrorist being caught and jailed is actually taking away, it's capturing our mind into the mind that needs to see clearly what people need. It actually becomes a thief in retrospect. So the mind that we're attempting to develop over the next 4 weeks, and the mind for as in terms of lifetimes, is that calm, gentle, grounded mind that is not judgmental, that is free to process information, training. You make assumptions, you listen, you connect. So moment by moment, you're aware of what will benefit that person. And if your mind or vessel is full of judgment, narrative, distraction, it just gets in the way. So that's what we're attempting to do here. And even when we're working with doctors and doing mindfulness sessions with them, we use a technique of that calmness. But at the same time, if you watch doctors in ED or any medical staff in their family, they've got to think pretty quickly. Diagnosis, look to order this test, that, what's happening there, what's his rate, what's his is it oxygen assumptions. It's constant. What treatment, what injuries do they have, what do we need to do, how can we maintain their life, how can we preserve their life? And it's an amazing skill. But in a calm mind, within a calm mind, that information's flowing very quickly, very fast, and they're grounded. That is the essence of a calm, kind, compassionate, and loving mind. So enlightenment, in terms of bodhicitta, wishing to attain enlightenment means to have an awakening of the mind. And if you seek a path, for example, where you think, well, that sounds, I really would like that, but at the moment, I know within myself, I'm honest with myself, I can only attain my own liberation. Therefore, the best I can do at the moment is meditate, make myself calm, aware of my emotions as they arise. I'll inspect them before I allow them to be expressed. And that's fine, because that's still a very virtuous mind. You are not only working on yourself, but you are working for the love and compassion for others. That's worthy of praise. When you also see that suffering does exist and you want to get that motivation to end that suffering, that becomes a virtuous, a very virtuous mind. And it's not tears. It's the most amazing mind. So in the paths that we have, we can focus our attention on our own being, our own mind, the friends that we love, because the least we can do is bring peace into them. And when you are searching for and developing your own calmness, you become a congruent person, determined. So even though you may come across adverse situations, people can feel that you're not someone you can that they can fool around with. There's this strength around you. That's the benefit of keeping the mind focused on your own calmness, but also benefiting other sentient beings. So just imagine this type of mind. A continuum, and the Buddhists use the word continuum because our mind just continues life after life. A continuum of mind which is capable of the greatest and most far-reaching love, free of anger, attachment and ignorance. A mind fused with compassion and wisdom is an unstoppable wellspring of happiness, peace and contentment. Such a mind with no boundary to its capacity to produce joy, and your actions bring the bountiful circumstances reflecting that joy. This mind is absolutely supreme and something that once you get that understanding of it, your consciousness change. So bodhicitta is an extraordinary mind. Well, as I mentioned about your capability, with that motivation, even though you might say, look, I'm practicing this and I do acknowledge that there's suffering in this world, but through this act of me meditating, may I benefit all sentient beings. Through this act of me wanting simply a higher rebirth, may I benefit sentient beings. Through this act of me not wanting to suffer anymore and practicing renunciation, impermanence, the 12 dependent links and so forth, may it be the cause and conditions for me to benefit all sentient beings. So no matter what you do, so even if you think that's a far-reaching goal, you say, well, I aspire to attain that goal. I aspire to develop compassion, great compassion, in order to benefit all sentient beings. So in terms of how we may start there, this is the question that they ask, well, what do we do? Well, we start with analysing ourselves in terms of looking at how we react or respond, our nature of our mind. You listen to the teachings, you look at how you react to friends, enemies and strangers, how you maybe have an unconscious bias, you may have an in-group and an out-group. Just be aware of it. Where are you? Like your tolerance of one person may be very high, but your tolerance for another person may be quite low. So just being aware, it's not criticising yourself, it's just being aware, because every one of you have got amazing good qualities within you, without exception. Every one of you helps people, benefits people in some way or another, without exception. So what we're saying is have a look at the things that you might want to just change a little bit in your mind. So use this example here of when you're driving in a kind of traffic, everything is going really smoothly and all calm, and all of a sudden you see these red lights ahead of you, and you very consciously put your foot on the brake, and you see your speedometer going down from 80 to 60 to 40, and then you come to a stop. Now before that time you were happy and leisure, the sun was shining out there, and then all of a sudden you just stop. Oh, just temporary thing. Your GPS wasn't on. You didn't pick up that there's a sort of traffic jam somewhere. And that's okay. And then the clock ticks. Oh, the traffic's not moving. And then you start thinking, I'm going to be late. And you're not aware of the breathing now that's starting to change. Maybe shallow, maybe deep. And then the mind starts to imagine being told off you're late, or trying to make an excuse, or how you're going to get the mobile phone because you can't use the mobile phone when you're driving, and all of a sudden this calmness stops. So just be aware of it. That's what the Buddha's saying. Be aware of those changes. So you're driving along and the person in front of you stops and allows cars coming from the left lane to come into it, thus creating more of a jam, and you're not even moving your car. So to the person who's allowing that car and being kind, allowing that car to come in, that driver that was allowed to come in waves and sees it as an act of kindness. But also, at the same time, if we're not monitoring our mind, that act was perceived by us, maybe, or that driver may be an enemy. So that's the fluctuating emotions in the way that we handle even driving for those that drive long distances. So, but if you catch that moment, yes, you're going to be late. We'll look at the future. It's only a small moment of time. That this day and that will be over. So if you're mindfully aware of yourself, you may catch yourself at the time when you're starting to breathe fast and then calm. And in that calmness, you may realize that every person in that car is a human being, that the roads were not made for you. They were made for thousands of people. You are one person using that road. That people in that car are also wanting to get to their destination. They're also wanting to end their suffering by being stuck in a traffic jam. There might be people in the car that are sick and going to appointments. There might be things that they're going to a funeral. We're all the same. And in that moment, you can change it. So every experience that we have, we can change in that moment. So in the verse with the offering of the Guru, Panchen, Losson, Chokyo, Gatson, and this is a Path to Enlightenment verse, said, no one desires even the slightest suffering, nor is ever content with the happiness she has. As there is no difference between myself and others, bless me to rejoice in the happiness of others. So you may ask the question, why do we need to embark on the Mahayana path and develop bodhicitta? Because the Mahayana path provides a bodhisattva from attaining enlightenment to create the Buddha's mind, and only the Buddha's mind is omniscient, that sees directly all objects of knowledge simultaneously. So if you attain your own liberation, you remove the obstructions to liberation, but you don't remove the obstructions to omniscience. And omniscience is an all-knowing mind. And in order to help all sentient beings, it's the all-knowing mind that we're attempting to attain. So how do we come across bodhicitta? Because you can hear and you know yourself that there are things in this life that you come across and you may like, and they find very easy to do. You may have a child prodigy that can play the piano. The Buddhists see that as that's rebirth. That's bringing in a particular skill, a talent from a previous life that then manifests in this life here. The same with bodhicitta. You may have studied bodhicitta in a past life. That is, you may have actually started to practice it in a past life. But then in that life, that's all that could have been attained. So when you come into the next life, you may hear the word bodhicitta and something happens. There's a student here that saw a counting mala with all the colours. They came from a Catholic background. But as soon as they saw that mala, something happened to them, a recognition of, this means something to me. They didn't know what it was because they just entered Buddhism at the time. Another student heard the verse which said that Bodhisattva's not afraid of crazy elephants, but very frightened of non-virtuous friends. The worst a crazy elephant can do is destroy your body. the harm that are non-virtuous friends is they take away all your virtues and your good deeds, meaning that because the verse is written on the premise that we're having rebirth and rebirth. So if we lose a body, we get another one. There's much more narrative to that, but that's the basic fundamental message. But if we lose our virtuous mind through non-virtuous friends, which can be also non-virtuous situations, like they just drag us away from wanting to do the right thing by people, then that's not replaceable. You have to almost start again to gain that level there. You also come across bodhicitta by simply hearing about it yourself or hearing about it by a teacher. So anytime it can actually just manifest. And the actual aspirations in bodhicitta is that you may have on one end that you aspire to become a bodhisattva, that you aspire to attain this level, but you're just not quite there. That's aspiring, and there's nothing wrong with that. Then you may have venturing, which is, okay, I'm going to start to know, this is interesting, I'm going to start to read a bit more on that. I still have my life, I'm still doing things, but my curiosity's being piqued, so I'll start reading it. But also when you read, you start to actually practice things like the 10 perfections. Generosity, ethics, patience, choice, effort, concentration and wisdom, which we will then talk about in the later weeks. So there's a lot of benefits when you start practicing bodhicitta, because it's a consciousness which is being developed. And one of them is that you enter the great Mahayana path. And it's through bodhicitta that you enter this path. So we have in Buddhism, you have your Theravada paths, you have your Mahayana paths, and then you have your Vajrayana paths. And these are the three streams of Buddhism currently exist in this world. Theravadas are from maybe Sri Lankas. They have these huge temples. They teach their children very young to practice meditation. The Mahayana paths are found in China, in Vietnam. There are a lot of those centres that are dedicated to the benefit of helping benefiting sentient beings. The Vajrayana is another path which you'll see written in our books, and that's like a path that requires a student that really understands the teachings of it. And even the Vajrayana path, which requires special empowerments, is interlaced and embraced with bodhicitta. Our teacher said, you may be particularly interested in this path here, and we'll teach you. But without bodhicitta, you're not going to get very far. And he said that over and over, not those words exactly, but he emphasized bodhicitta to us students. So you receive the blessings of a Buddha. Now, Tim mentioned that you receive blessings from the Buddhas in his previous classes. You actually can receive the blessings from a Buddha when you commit to wanting to reduce the suffering of all sentient beings. So in actual fact, you become like a son and a daughter of the Buddhas. You surpass those that may have had a direct perception of emptiness, because the very foundation of wanting to help others is worthy of praise, worthy of honour. You become the object of offering and prostrations for both gods and humans, and what that simply means is like you're a new moon. And bodhicitta is often referred to as the moon because it's cool and calming, and you can look at it, it doesn't harm your eyes. So you're a new moon, you're developing. And often they say that a new moon is far more precious than a full moon at the time, because you're developing. And a very important thing is that large amounts of merit are accumulated instantly the moment you think that. So as the Dalai Lama said, that when you develop bodhicitta, the past karma looks after itself. When you develop bodhicitta, accumulation of merit looks after itself. So from that time forth, whether you're asleep or unconcerned, a force of merit, vast and unceasing, equal to the sky, will be produced. That's Shantideva. So your negativities are instantly purified and all your wishes are fulfilled, in the sense that because you come from pure motivation, then that you find that the paths, things that you require, will happen. Because your intentions are pure. So you're not asking for a Porsche on one side, not asking for the borders to reopen so you can go to Switzerland. And it's simply all your desire, all your motivation is wanting to help sentient beings, and that in itself produces the wishes to be fulfilled. You are immune to the harm of hindrances, and we use the word sometimes Dharma protectors. There are you are your own Dharma protector, but by the fact that you are developing a calm and gentle and strong and courageous mind, that when things happen, your resilience will be a little bit low, a little bit higher, in the sense where your reactions to people being adverse will just slightly less potent, and you'll be able to handle situations a lot more easily. So you will then progress through the grounds and you will become a source of happiness and peace for everyone that's around you. Part of what we do in meditation, just looking at the time, is that we create a space around us, a peaceful space. So at times, even when people may enter or engage with you, your peacefulness may be felt by them. Isn't that nice to be able to do that? Similarly, when you come across somebody who may be angry, you're already feeling that anger, probably even at a distance. We're social animals. We need each other to live. We depend on each other for food, for clothing. We depend on each other for conversations, for learning and teaching, to get better, medicine, but just to enjoy a wonderful conversation, to learn from each other, to be there for each other. So in the Buddha's teachings, everything has another meaning, another level, because the practice is getting within our own deep minds as well. And in bodhicitta, you may have like a shepherd-like bodhicitta, which is saying, okay, now I want all these people to attain enlightenment, so I'm going to work behind the scenes, going to cook, we're going to do everything that's necessary. I'm going to create the conditions for this group of people to attain enlightenment, and I'll attain enlightenment last. Or you might have a pilot like bodhicitta, a group of friends that listen to you. They pay attention to what you say. You were a great influencer in that group. So you say, look, or you might, well, we're going to learn together, and together we're going to go attain enlightenment. This is just rhetorical, and it's the Buddha's own teachings to let you know where you are and how you can progress on the path. Or you may have king-like bodhicitta, which says, look, I know my capabilities. I really feel that I need to be enlightened first, and then I'll engage other people. Then I'll go and I will then train others through teaching and otherwise. And all three are perfectly good examples with good hearts, but it is actually the king-like bodhicitta which is the one that really symbolises the reality of how we become enlightened, how we help others in there. I'm just looking at the time now. So we're going to have another gentle meditation now. If you can just put yourself in a comfortable position, and we're going to meditate on the bodhicitta. We're also going to use this opportunity to be aware of the spaciousness of our mind. Sometimes you think our mind is here. But what the Buddhist says is a consciousness, is what we mean by mind. A consciousness that sees far beyond boundaries, a consciousness that knows knowledge, a consciousness which is clear. So we find ourselves in a comfortable position with our back straight, allowing our mind to focus on the present. Observing our mind, our consciousness, to see if the mind's drifted somewhere else. So when it does, just gently bring it back to the breathing, back to you. So focus on the breath now. And we imagine within our hearts the light of bodhicitta, wishing to gain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And compassion, great compassion, of wishing to relieve the suffering of all sentient beings without exception. And the light of loving kindness is within your heart. Brilliant, bright, translucent, glowing, warm. And when you feel this light and see this light in the heart, your body becomes warm, calm. And the light also resembles like a brilliant diamond. And you feel the light emanating out. And you're aware of your consciousness is also around you. The space around you is peaceful, calm. And the light then emanates out in all directions. Light emanate out in front, behind, to the left, to the right, above, below. And the light becomes brighter and brighter. And extends out to everyone in this room. Sends out to the suburbs. Allow that loving, compassionate, kind light imbued in bodhicitta outward, out. extending out to Victoria, to all of Australia, Tassie, to all the continents, the oceans, to all sentient beings, humans, animals, insects, birds, fish, as far as your imagination allows. The love and compassion out. Now, imagine that light touching the hearts of every sentient being when you look closely, and that connection, the equanimity, the us. And those that are sleeping right now will have peaceful dreams. And those that are walking may just stop for a moment. And those that are talking may just take a breath in. And in touching the hearts of all sentient beings, you may also feel their suffering, to understand their suffering. So that light enters the suffering, and with your love, compassion, you imagine that their suffering disappears in the light. And you may now wish to simply take on that suffering into your light, into your heart. You draw in the suffering of all sentient beings into your heart. And then the light purified and extended right out back to all sentient beings. And as you're doing that, you feel a courage, a strength, resilience, a knowing, an awareness. Yes, we are all equal. Yes, I've known you in past lives. Just don't remember. We wish you happiness, wish you joy, good health. And as the light extends out, Imagine the entire world in peace. No more killing, stealing, no more harming others. Everyone helping each other. Everyone working together in harmony, country by country. Only farming the soil when necessary. Keeping carbon emissions down. Helping the poor, the sick. Money going to the right areas. Healthcare, education, technology. Enough food produced for all. Leaders changing their heart. Peace. Good talking, good communication, resolving issues. And all sentient beings living in harmony. And the earth responding, re-nurturing, forests growing back, the air cleaner. So now bring that image, the light, gently back to your heart. And with the merit generated with such a meditation, we dedicate merit to all sentient beings, that they may quickly attain enlightenment. So we still keep the meditation focus, and for the next 2 or 3 minutes, focus on the spaciousness of our mind, our groundedness, the clarity of mind. And just imagine what it's like to be a Buddha. to spontaneously and effortlessly benefit all sentient beings. To know all objects of knowledge precisely. With a vision, an awareness that can see a small blade of grass from far away to the entire landscape, mountaintops, all at once, to the entire universe. Imagine the kindness and compassion. Imagine with any conscious awareness or any elaborative ways of thinking that you spontaneously will benefit others. Just be in that state for a moment. Just be present to the everlasting kindness, the inconceivable love, a mind that pervades all. Imagine you that way. Imagine the space around you as peaceful. So now we bring that image back to you. And we finish by saying in this meditation, through this practice of meditating, on meditations on the path to enlightenment, may I quickly attain enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings. Through this practice of thinking about meditations on the path to enlightenment, may I quickly attain enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings. Through this practice of thinking about meditations on the path to enlightenment, may I quickly attain enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings. Through this practice of listening, may I quickly attain enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings. Through the practice of generosity, may I quickly attain enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings. Through the practice of ethics, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom, may I quickly attain enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings. And through the practice of mindfulness, may I quickly attain enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings. And finally, through this practice of offering this delicious food to the Buddhas before eating, may I quickly attain enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings. So when you're ready, you may gently open your eyes. So even if you find a concept of Buddhahood or bodhicitta, something that just takes a little bit of time, there's such great hope, because in the Buddha Potential book, which is one of the fundamental potentials for enlightenment, there's a verse which says, with the vast and profound teaching, the great Dharma taught for the benefit of others, when though not understanding, very extensive belief arises, and then patience with the practice, they finally gain that which is the two surpassing aspects of perfection, understand that bodhisattvas naturally possessing these qualities come from the developed potential, which is just by venturing into bodhicitta and practicing all that. So it is a real worthy path. And in terms of what it can do for you is just, we won't have enough books to actually write on it. So at this stage, we've got a little bit more time. We might talk about, for the last 5-10 minutes, is the science of the mind. And as mentioned earlier, that His Holiness has always promoted the study and research of meditation. So he's founded the Emory Tibet Partnership, and with Emory University in Atlanta, US of A. And the monks that are going to the university and the researchers are going to the monasteries. So in this partnership, they're able to study. Now, one thing they found in all this research is that when we meditate and we constantly train the mind to come back to a central point, we're actually developing the grey matter and the neurons in the prefrontal cortex, which is this part of the region of the brain, and where the executive function resides. And the executive function is about decision making, it's about emotional control, appetite control, it's also about thinking, memory, that's all in this part of the brain here. It also acts as like a conductor. So if you look at the amygdala, and these are the studies that I've had, the amygdala is the part of the brain in the middle. So for me, it's just in here. So when amygdalas are emotion generating parts of the brain where you have anxiety, you may have fear, it's a flight or flight response, it's very primal. So what they're finding in this research is by bringing the mind and meditating on things like compassion, we are changing, we have neuroplasticity and the brain is changing. So imagine a situation where you have a rising emotion, something happens in front of you, it really, really presses your buttons. You may have this anger coming up from the amygdala, which is a natural primal response. But because you've developed the prefrontal cortex and the executive function becomes sharper and the awareness of emotions, then that emotion will arise. But it's intercepted by the prefrontal cortex. And it will make a decision, like a conductor, whether it will allow you to express that emotion or not. Most people will have emotions where they just take their breath and they won't say it. That's your brain functioning perfectly. That's your prefrontal cortex and your executive function just really doing their job perfectly. And you hear some of the monks say when they talk about meditation, how when this emotion arises and they say, oh, this is what anger is. But they intercept it. And that's what the research is finding out, even at Stanford University in California, where one of the holiest Dalai Lama's interpreters is now, where he's leading research on. And not only that, but it also has another part that's not very well known. It slows aging. When I mention this to certain people, their eyes lift up. They think, oh, okay, yeah, that's new. And but what it does is, we've got these chromosomes. On top of the chromosomes, there's things called telomeres. And as we age, the telomeres reduce in size, that causes all aging. But in meditation, it actually slows down the aging process. And that really is something that weren't aware of, and this is now where modern science is bringing it into part of the research on meditation. So it is quite a useful and important function in our daily lives, and there's mindfulness and meditation everywhere that you see, and that's got to be a good thing. It's got to be an exceptionally good thing. They're training in mindfulness in schools. They're doing mindfulness, and Dr. Craig Hassard in Monash University is actually incorporating mindfulness in all the medical programs that they're there. So it's happening, but sometimes we forget because we're humans. And we're not perfect. But in the later classes, we talk about the nature of reality. on how our minds will impute things in this world. Dependent arising, things will happen, and how to transform adverse conditions onto the path. Because we're going to suffer one way or another. Relationships will end. Things we find joyful may change. When we're happy, that's an absolute good indication of the good karma that you have created. You've all had an enormous amount of karma to be born as a human right now. So, it's amazing what you've done. So at this stage, we will conclude. And if you have any questions, anyone got any questions at this stage here? Any questions? Anything at all? We were just finishing a little bit earlier, and that's quite normal with the first class. But I do urge you to just keep on that meditation, very incorporate it in your practice daily. You can do 10 minutes. You can also do breathing at red lights. You may have, if you're stuck in a waiting room, just might do mindfulness of breath and really embrace that meditation and what it can do. It also does, as you know, reduce your blood pressure. In a recent teaching by His Holiness Dalai Lama, they were talking with Russian scientists that had a really acute understanding or questions about meditation. And it's on, you can actually see it's still on YouTube, on His Holiness Dalai Lama's website. And they were asking really specific questions about the death process. And I was very impressed with these Russian scientists. They knew a lot about Buddhism, and they were asking very good questions. But when you're doing research, the essence of your research is to make sure that your methodology is correct. And this is where Buddhism is playing a part. So with that, I just thank you all for coming here today, and I appreciate your presence and also the opportunity to be able to share with you the Dharma and the Buddha's teachings. And I wish you every happiness, every joy in this world, and may all your sufferings disappear very quickly and bring out peace to the world. So thank you. Thank you.